There we go.
John Sessoms.
Now I can hear you.
Thanks, John.
Thank
All
you.
right, next on the agenda is the ratification of the admin approvals. There's three, there's two home occupations and some addition to the bleachers at the Bentonville West. Are there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners or staff in regards to the admin approvals? If not, then I would entertain a motion for the ratification of the admin approvals.
Joey, I'll make a motion to approve the administrative approval.
Yeah, second.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right, first thing on the agenda this evening under old business is PUD 2304 Monlux Townhomes. It's proposed townhome at 578 Womack Road. Zoned. We changed it?
It'll be heard at the council next week.
Okay. It is 4.85 acres with 54 dwelling units, and this item was tabled at our last meeting. Is the applicant here to give us an update? Anything that you guys changed?
Good evening, Ron Fulmer, Civil Engineering, out of Silent Springs. We have not changed anything, went back and reevaluated the code requirements for parking, which is, I guess, depending on whether you want to classify it as townhomes or single family or multifamily is anywhere from 1.5 to 2 units per apartment, or 2 parking spaces per unit. And we have a proposal of 3 parking spaces per unit, so I'm trying to understand where the need is for additional parking. We've already got those 2 times of new parking spaces and code required.
I think we'll cover that in just a second then. Thanks, Ron. Kayla, any update from staff?
Yeah, so they did go back through and update their articulations. Diane, if you could get that up there. So they did that by changing the materials. As you can see on the rear.
Does that meet the intent? I thought it was an actual bump out of a foot or more every whatever feet, however many feet we.
There is a sentence in the code that says they can do it artificially by changing the verticality of the materials. In addition to that, I do want to clarify a few things. These are, as the picture shows, 2-story. They're 28 feet in height from the top of the foundation to the street. Based on that elevation that they provided. The buildings are 35 feet from Kimmel Road, so even though the setback on Kimmel Road is reduced to 15 feet, the building is 35 feet from the road. Just for comparison for the internal streets, the reason why we were concerned about the parking is because these units are 3-bedroom units. This provides 3 parking spaces, one covered, 2 uncovered. And the streets are 25 feet back of curb, which means there's no room for on-street parking like most developments would require. So if they have any visitors, there's not really anywhere for them to park if they've got a full house with 3 cars. Other developments, we've have a precedent of asking for visitor parking, especially in this area, Featherston Village, which is just across the street. They have 30-foot back of curb roads, but because their lots were a little thinner, they couldn't have on-street parking in most spots because of driveway conflict, but they were required to have off-street parking in other areas. Down the street, we approved the PUD for the Robbins PUD, which you guys haven't seen the development plans for those, but we've been going through that development plan and making sure they have on-street parking for those units as well. So there is a precedent in the area for requiring there to be on-street parking.
Okay, there's a couple of things on architectural treatment. It stated that all facade walls should be composed of 100% architectural materials, including at least 2 of the following materials on each facade wall: brick, exterior insulation, finished systems, dry fit, architectural concrete blocks, glass, precast native stone, wood, tile, stucco, fiber cement siding, aluminum composite panels, or flush metal paneling. ACP, which is the aluminum composite panels, and flush metal paneling may not compose more than 25% of the area of any one facade wall. In addition, is that not metal? Is that not a composite wall? Composite aluminum composite.
Cement.
This is in there.
Okay. And then addition, the vertical plane of each facade visible from public view shall not be completely flat, but shall be broken vertically in at least one direction in the vertical plane for each 100 feet of horizontal surface, or a minimum of one time, whichever is more stringent. This articulation requirement may be met by a recessed or extended entrance. Simulating an articulated facade through the use of at least two different architectural materials may be considered to meet this requirement on sidewall facades or front facades after the first articulation. What we were talking about is that after they make the articulation of having the distance of jetting out, then they can use the material, the different materials as the second requirement. Or else they have to have two.
The doors and the awnings count as articulation since they get out. Yeah. Do you know for on the back of these, Ron, the awnings that are above the doors, if they, does that stick out?
Yeah, it's on the.
Be like this.
First page, maybe?
This is like an overhang, you know, right?
Right there, Kayla, the middle picture left.
Oh, I see.
You can see the little,
Yeah, so they do stick out.
maybe when it's talking about an entrance, it's talking about a full
The full-
shut out of the whole building.
But it's in- See, like, this is considered no articulation,
I think we can talk about the parking though.
even though it's
Right, this is way
recessed, but
over.
this,
So do you still have questions about the parking?
so.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you're 25 feet wide, so you're not allowed to park on the road. So that was the ask to about the parking. So I guess you got two options. You could look at widening your streets. Or providing some offsite parking.
The biggest thing to point out is Diana's pulling up the table in the PUD code right now. I highlighted in green. It says no additional visitor parking will be considered. Not in the parking recommendations.
I think the big thing is you're setting people up for failure in a, because technically you have 21 feet, I believe, if we did our math right, of pavement for, you know, people to pass for one thing. And then the expectation of them not to park in the streets is going to be a handful by itself. And so we're really setting this up for failure as far as I'm concerned. And some of these are 3 bedrooms. So if they're a 3-bedroom and you have 3 drivers, then there's no place for anybody to park or come visit. That's the reason that when we try to get more dense, we also have to allow for other things, which in this case is parking. And that's the reason that we do have the statement that we can consider additional parking. And that's what we've done in each one of the other PUDs that we've created throughout the city. And so that's the reason that we asked for the additional parking in this particular example is just the fact that we're setting it up for failure.
Even though we've got more parking than is required by code already.
We have the option in the PUD to ask for additional parking because again, if you have a 3-bedroom, as I stated, and 3 people drive, then where are their friends and family going to park whenever they show up?
Okay, this, I don't know if you know this, so I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Sure.
The PUDs that you mentioned, what was the bedroom count on those, do you know?
I don't know the bedroom count off the top of my head. I know when I looked at it, they all had like 1 to 2 visitor parking spaces per.
Sure, and I feel like a 3-bedroom townhome is a pretty big one. I don't think that's the norm, correct?
I don't know
Are
that
you talking mixed use?
for other PUDs.
Were they-
I know for the Robbins PUD, they have some that are 3-bedroom, but they have at least 1 visitor parking space.
Nice.
1 to 3 in Featherston and the other one.
Yeah, so same thing. They have garages,
Featherston just says 2 uncovered.
2 uncovered.
And then for the other one down the street, they have a mix of some that don't have garages and some that do. The ones that don't have garages that only have a driveway have additional parking in the areas.
And the problem I see it's not that it across the board. Because you're right, you do have more parking than what's required, right? But what happens to how many 3-bedroom units do you have here? All of them?
They're all-
All of them,
All of them.
they're all the same.
So when we actually have 3 people staying there over 16 that have vehicles, there's no visitors to park. at all. And I think the code could probably be written better based on the unit size or the bedroom count in the unit. But I totally agree with Jeff. I think we're setting that up for failure and fire emergency issues in the future if we don't get some sort of offsite parking for those. And I don't think every one of them is gonna require it, because I don't think the norm, the average unit is like 2.6 or 2.5 something, so maybe every other one could have that problem. I totally agree with you. But to Ron's point, I don't think it needs to be a 1-to-1.
No.
I just think there needs to be some provision for offsite parking. Or off-street parking. I think that's fair.
And I'll let any other commissioners weigh in, positive, negative thoughts, anything like that. Before we weigh our options.
You guys discuss parking. I do have some other items to address for this one.
Okay. Do we get anything figured out on the articulation? Do we need to revisit that?
Where I don't think we're
Well,
going.
it's still-
Wait a
I
minute.
mean, it says that 2 different architectural materials may be considered to meet this requirement after the first articulation. The door looks like it's mainly just a door frame with the.
It's just the awning that bumps out.
Not like a true
Right. agree.
example of like recess.
Agree.
Or-
Agreed.
I wouldn't consider it necessarily.
I'm gonna ask the parking question. I'm gonna keep us on track and ask a parking question, then we'll come back to the articulation, okay? Does anybody else have any comments or concerns, questions in regards to parking?
This is related.
Before you get shut down, hold on.
This is related. The open space requirement. The 31.24, is that the calculated necessitated open space?
Based on their density increase, they have to provide that much.
That much, and what do they show? Just that?
Is that.
Just that, okay, so there's no room,
Exactly.
no open space, okay. That worked.
I think, again, like what you just said, in the realm of what we're talking about, I mean, the request is also for 9.9 units per acre when the cap is 8. Right? There's inconsistency in the building setback. We want more than what we have there. Same with the street side setback. So I think that was part of the conversation last time was we're being a lot of requested, changes to codes and then parking was a concern of ours as well. And so we were trying to find a way to work with you to accommodate what you're going with. our safety needs are.
Brandon, a big one is that's not the typical street section either that would allow. Parking. Which compounds
That's
the problem for-
that's exactly right.
But it does exceed your minimum with street section.
It does, but you're not considering any off-street parking like those are.
This is a private drive anyway.
It is
Yeah.
private, but typically we design our private streets to our local street standards in case we ever have to take them over. So as part of the PUD, you're allowed to ask to change the width of your roads. But the issue of parking does come up.
The minimum width for the local roads accounts for the parking on one side and still allow the fire trucks and fire access they need for the full 20-foot lane.
This is also related. Well, being a private road, my understanding we may want it future or whatever like that, but if it goes one way, right, a one-way road around, is that something we would consider? Instead of a two-way road, a one-way road that opens up the side for parking?
Well,
Are you blocking drives though too?
yeah,
Wow,
Then it would.
that's where we.
there's nowhere to park.
There not any?
North-south streets.
I was gonna say, there wasn't there a little bit there?
There are
Yeah, on the
two-
inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the one-way drive thing kind of falls apart if a road ties to it up there on the north.
Well, yeah, I do see that part.
You worked really hard today though, didn't you?
I worked really hard and I really thought through that.
Paul shook his head as soon as you said it, so fire guy was
I was
gonna,
gonna ask that too, and I figured Paul would say no.
the fire guy was gonna come up here and say no, so.
There's nothing in the code that requires me to say one way or the other. Preference, we don't like one way because nobody follows it in residential structures and we get blocked in anyways. So we just prefer not to even mess with it.
And I will note that that stub out at the top northeast is not really a stub out based on the way that the roads for Blossom.
I see that, yeah.
Designed, it'll connect up towards the,
Bad.
not here.
Paul said.
I'm gonna move on from parking, because I think that what I heard was most people are under the impression that and would require some additional parking. Back to articulation.
And what would the planning commission recommendation be for the number of parking spaces? The additional visitor parking spaces, what would your recommendation be?
What's the total dwelling units?
48.
Just so we're clear, if they kept with the 8 per acre, which is the code, right?
If you kept with the 8 per acre.
Then you
wouldn't
have
do it.
38 units. Right now you have 48 units. So 10 units would allow for parking that's necessary as well as to meet the green space requirement all at the same time, correct?
They're at 8 units, they wouldn't even need to request a PUD.
That's true, but the way he's using that metric, I really kind of like that. For 10 units, that's not even one per group of houses, and I think that.
I'm just,
Yeah, he would still need a PUD because they're not on their own lots.
I understand. I'm just throwing that out there.
I'd say that the reason we're having to go PUD is because we are not doing individual lots for these buildings. So, and once the PUD was required, then with all the extra green space and landscaping and all the amenity requirements, we had to increase the density to make it work.
could there be some compromise? I mean. Maybe it's not maybe you're not losing 10 units, but maybe you're. And that, you're. Moving 5 units and that again gives you some space for parking and the green space to maintain. Cause we're just barely meeting the minimum.
And I mean, I don't know if y'all agree with this, but I'd entertain. It sounds like from what we're talking about, where some units are gonna have to go. But, and that means your green space is no longer any good, which I'm sure you realize. So there could be a combination of widening the roads and providing, fewer than 10 stalls, I would, I'd go for that too. Just whatever you think works best for the situation.
As much as I'd like to give a number, part of the reason that we requested them to come back this time was for ideas. So that we would have a conversation, because if I tell them, or the group tells them, not just me, but if we come up with a number 24, then it may lessen the creativity or the ability to potentially do something that we're not thinking about. So I agree that I don't necessarily want to pick a number.
Well, or what I had kind of given them, because they had come to me right after the last meeting. I gave them a half space per unit. So whatever they came up with on their units, and that was the.
12 by 6, yeah.
If they lost a unit, then
I mean,
that would adjust.
it could be as simple as widening the roads and showing how much stacking you have to park on these north-south streets. Maybe that would do it. It looks like you have quite a bit of room there if the roads were the correct width.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, go back to the earlier comment about the setback reductions. We were trying to keep all of the green space in the middle so that it was more green space instead of just green space that's between the building and the street, which is not as appealing or as usable. And a comment was made at the previous meeting about, well, we had to do that to get all the units in there, but that's not necessarily the case. We can make that work. But we're trying to keep trying to have a big green area in the middle instead of just a bunch of green around the outside and then this little bitty space in the middle. So that's the reason we're requesting to reduce setbacks around.
And I think, I don't want to speak for everybody on the commission, but I think we're willing to compromise on some of those things, but it just, on our last discussion, it was asking for a significant amount of increase on units per acre, or 10 more on this, plus, asking for more setback, and then in addition, not having additional parking. It was just like, I think what we were requesting was just, hey, come back and almost kind of meet us in the middle here and let's try to work this out. But it just felt like, but from what I'm hearing you say today is like, nah, we don't want to do that.
Well, that's not wanting to reduce the unit count. I don't, you're using 38. I know that 40 doesn't sound like a whole lot of difference, but it's basically a 5-acre tract. And at 8 units per acre, that'd be 40 units for a good round number. So we're only asking, 20% more. 3 units, one of 2 buildings. So, yeah. It would be nice if the R3 MF allowed townhome style buildings to be more than just 4 per lot, then we wouldn't even be here wasting your time and mine.
That's a question I'm gonna ask at the very end of the meeting. To staff, but we'll get there.
Thank you.
And I'll go back and see, I'll see if I can widen those 2 north-south streets and get enough additional parking in the street where we can accommodate, well, with the widths that the distances we're looking at, probably gonna be talking or at least 4 or 5 per side. So.
Yeah.
Parallel parking, if that's okay with the committee.
That sounds like meeting in the middle, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on to articulation. Did we decide if they meet it or not? And if it's flat on the back and only the door, then the answer is no. Is that correct?
That's my interpretation.
So
Disagree with?
first articulation means there has to be at least one before they can try and use the different
Right.
lanes. Okay. Architect probably misinterpreted that, so I'm sorry. Is there any specific on the depth of those articulations, or is that
1 foot at least, or?
I thought that there was, but I don't see it listed. There's examples shown.
It said they can do it with certain material type, like an extra course on the wall.
For the first articulate.
After the first.
We can get the verbiage and the documentation over to you though, Ron.
Be fine.
Ayla, what else do you need us to have a conversation on?
I just wanted to address that we did get a public comment, late this afternoon that you guys have in front of you. It's more concerns about our PUD code than about this project specifically, I feel. But I responded to it just so that you guys have it in front of you, and Diane's got it on the screen for any questions you guys have.
Is it in here?
I think it's separate.
Right. Separate.
Oh, I got you. All right.
You got it right at the end of the day. That was all I wanted to just say for the record.
Just articulation of parking,
Back to the same two issues, basically.
back to the same two. So, you know, I think the best thing for us to do, Ron, is to table it again.
Yeah.
And we can take a vote on it, but if it gets rejected, then you gotta go to council and all that good stuff, so then you may end up back here anyway, so if you think we can make the parking work, and again, I don't wanna give you a number, I'd much prefer that you come back and give us some ideas, a couple that we discussed tonight. Okay.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to, what, do we do? Do we need to do a
It
public
was,
hearing?
it was just a note
Just
from the
there,
last
okay.
time that it was, yeah.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to table PUD 2304.
Yeah, second.
Motion and a second to table. Is anyone opposed? Thanks, Ron. All right, next on the agenda this evening is a public hearing. And this is for rezone 2403 Weeks. It's a rezone request from A1 to R3 single family. It's at 12660 Bush Road. 5.01 acres. The owner is George, and I'm gonna say this wrong, probably, I'm gonna say Chara Weeks, with Odyssey being the engineer. Is the applicant or anyone here to give us an overview of what you guys are requesting?
I'm not sure what the name right.
Hey, good evening. My name is Chris Tilley. I'm with Odyssey Engineering. We've been working with the Weeks family as well as the potential developers of the property. Tonight, we're asking the planning commission to consider recommending a rezoning of this property from A1 to R3 single family. The immediate purpose of this rezoning would be for the Weeks to sell the property. The developer we're working with is proposing a single family development for this site similar to what has already been approved on the adjacent property to the east in Bush Road Homes and a couple of parcels to the west in Silverleaf. We believe this rezoning makes sense for a few reasons. First off, it follows the Centerton land use map, which designates this area for residential development, recommending a max density of 3 to 7 units per acre. The R3 SF zoning would allow for a maximum of 6 units per acre, which would fall in line with the city's goal in this area. Second, the project would be considered infill development for the city and would make use of existing infrastructure while making improvements to Bush Road along the property's frontage at the cost of the developer. It's already surrounded by residential development, which would meet the city's comprehensive plan to locate new residential development adjacent to existing neighborhoods. And another reason to allow this rezoning or to recommend it, that it would help with the city's goal to focus new residential development near the new junior high, which ultimately minimizes traffic for Centerton compared to infill developments. And lastly, there's precedent set in this area for this type of rezoning. The zoning map, you'll see multiple single families in this area, including the Bush Road homes directly adjacent to this property. So these things in mind, that's what we're requesting tonight.
It's a very well-researched introduction.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Eric, you want to cover the staff comments?
It's currently the parcel is zoned A1 and was previously brought to the planning commission for a rezone to R3D, which was denied on November 15th, 2022. They appealed to the city council, which was also denied on January 10th, 2023. So As Chris said, the parcel falls under the low, medium density, residential district on the adopted land use plan, which is a density between 3 to 7 units per acre. And the maximum for R3SF is 6 units per acre. It fronts along Bush Road, which is a major collector. It's currently paved. The parcel has access to a 12-inch water main. There's currently no sewer access, but nearby connections from the adjacent neighborhoods. It is not located in a floodway or a floodplain. There is a potential riverine wetlands in the parcel, so an assessment will be, or a wetlands assessment will be required prior to development. Surrounding zonings include R2. That includes Westridge Village, that is 2.5 units per acre, Tamaron subdivision. To the north, east, and south, which is 2.9 units per acre. And then to the southeast is an R3 SF zoned parcel that has been recently approved preliminarily. And that would be 7.4 units per acre once it's developed. There's surrounding agricultural tracts, and then another R3 SF, which is 2.6 units per acre. That's Silverleaf to the west. And then, based on the surrounding zonings that would be compatible to zone to R3SF for this parcel. And as stated before, it's the land use on the land use plan. The parcel is in a low, medium density residential, between overall density between 3 to 7 units per acre. Which under that would the R3SF zoning would be consistent with the land use plan. It would be consistent to have to fulfill item 19, which is to focus on short-term investment on infill instead of making significant improvements to greenfields. It may be consistent into completing the subdivisions, particularly the ones surrounding it. It would be located near the new junior high. And then it would be consistent with item 33, which is located development next to an existing neighborhood. And then it may be consistent on item 35, which is to seek to increase density in key areas rather than to reduce the land cost per unit for development in order to address affordability.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public?
Something.
Absolutely. I will let you.
Great, thank you. In our land use plan, there are a few specific nodes that are called out, and this is in node 2. And that part of the city includes designated residential areas adjacent to the new junior high. So new residential development should be focused in this area to capitalize on the adjacency to the new school. This section of the city can also support higher densities. So I just
It's
thought.
an infill node.
But on the land use plan that we currently have, that is specifically low to medium density.
Yes, but our comp plan doesn't exactly match our zoning densities. So in the comp plan, low, medium is 3 to 7 units per acre. And this zoning R3SF has a max of 6 units per acre. So this falls within. We have a very interesting gray area between our low, medium, high.
And you said low, medium is
7,
3 to 7.
But this is 6.
Okay.
even though it's medium high density
So
residential.
that's why we call it medium high, because it still fits within that medium range.
But the maximum is 6.
Yes. is our highest density of single family.
Thank you.
And so with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Tony, I make a motion to open the hearing for rezone 24-303.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing. We are now open to the public. Before anyone comes up, we did receive two emails, which I will summarize. This one is from Laurie Taylor Ham, writing about concerns regarding the growth in Centerton. So this seems like an overall Centerton in regards to growth. The matter listed above, specific concern in regards to traffic on both Bush and Vaughn Road, saying they're intolerable at certain times. References a number of increase in accidents. I don't have any numbers on that. I don't know where she got the statement, but there's no numbers that say this was the increase. And then without proper traffic improvements, that it's unimaginable that we would approve more density housing in this area. Referencing the specific problematic at Vaughn and Centerton at any time of the day, and referencing the junior high school as being extra amount of traffic. The second letter is from Nadesha Richardson. Again, maintaining the character and safety of the surrounding neighborhoods is paramount. The area around 12660 Bush Road features predominantly R2 zones, low density, contributing to a sense of community and tranquility. Rezoning the property to high density housing would disrupt this cohesion and potentially to overcrowding issues that could strain the local infrastructure. Preserving the green spaces and promoting a more sustainable urban environment aligns with the long-term interest of our community. Low density housing typically allows for more green areas and landscaping, which not only enhances the aesthetic appeal, but also supports the biodiversity and environmental conservation efforts. Low density housing tends to be associated with lower traffic congestion and parking challenges compared to high density developments. By opting for low density zoning, we can mitigate potential traffic hazards and ensure safer streets for residents and more specifically children. She references the intersection of Bush Road and Vaughn has become increasingly dangerous and congested at peak traffic times. There are children walking in the ditches while cars simultaneously drive on the shoulder in an attempt to circumvent the lines of cars. Additionally, the intersection of Vaughn Road and Centerton Boulevard is constantly congested, and cars resort to driving in the ditch and doing illegal U-turns after waiting in line for extended periods of time. Due to lack of sidewalks, the roads near 12660 Bush Road have become dangerous for children and adults alike, as there is consistent patterns of residents walking in the ditch, in the road, and driving across the grass. She requests that she doesn't say decline, but she just asks us to consider. So we're now open to the public. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak, have any questions or comments, we'd ask that you come to the podium, state your name and your address and what concerns or questions you might have.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So my name is Parker Tashima. I live at 12712 Bush Road. So I live on two properties to the west of this on the agriculture piece as well. So at the end of the day, I do want the family to be able to sell their land if that's what they would like to do. And I talked with my wife about this, and I think long term, eventually if we did sell and we wanted to rezone, I would want something, I might be here asking a similar thing of you guys for it to be rezoned. I think what my concern is, and then kind of a lot of the people that live there in the Tamerlan area concern is just with the R3 SF, I think there's still such a wide variety of how much density that could be. I appreciate the clarification on the 6 per unit, and that's still meeting our land use plan. I think what the concern we have is that compared to Silverleaf versus like Featherstone, there's a pretty vast difference there from that type of zoning. And so the request I think would just be that those houses match similar to the Westridge Estates as well as the Tamerlan. Request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Richard Marwoodell. I'm at 1520 Anniston Road in Tamara on there. And I just wanted to say, I was here at the November 2022 and recognize and appreciate the resubmission at, you know, the single family instead of the duplex. And that was one of my concerns, that we're trying to cram so many, you know, units in that small space. And so I guess I would just echo what Parker said. You know, there's that wide variety, and it's vastly different looking at like Featherston versus what's happening on the west. And even with the preliminary PUD for that adjacent lot on the east, right? I think you had mentioned they're doing 7.4 and so even if they were to keep it to the 6 units per acre, you know, that would be much more desirable. So I don't know if there's a way to hold them to that, or, you know, if they submit a PUD later, but that would be my question is, how do we, you know, if this was rezoned, what are the actions that we could take to try and help keep it consistent with the development in the area? I mean, the
Yeah.
max is 6. If
Yeah.
it's rezoned, the request, excuse me, let me restate that. If the request is approved, the max density is 6 units.
Units.
Okay. Right, and like a PUD wouldn't circumvent that, or,
But if there's a PUD request, it is a public hearing as well.
okay, so we could come back at that time.
In addition, our PUD's code requirements have also changed since Featherston, where if it is a higher density, then that open space requirement comes in, that they have to provide more open space.
Okay, that's great to know.
Because the higher density was originally intended for those that build up.
Okay. Great, I appreciate it, and the traffic, again, that's, you know, to just kind of say, yeah, I've seen the accidents and experienced that, so it is kind of dangerous, but I appreciate you, you know, developer, and submitting the lower, I guess it's lower, right, the SF, right, yeah, so anyway, just, that's all I had, so thank you.
Well, hi, I'm Lori, and you got my email, but I think I just want to reiterate, and I have people in the audience, if they've at least raised their hand, they're just really shy about public speaking. But they live in the neighborhood, and the big concern is the infrastructure and the fact that the roads are so congested already. And we add more high density to that area, we have more congestion. It's pretty unsafe trying to drive. I don't know if any of you have driven down on at Bush Road, but it's pretty unsafe there, and we do see a lot of accidents there. I wish I had the traffic information. I didn't look that stuff up, but the junior high school, the students don't have a place to walk to get to school, so the parents have to drive them, which means we have just a ton of traffic going down Vaughn, and it's just really pretty crazy. And people get nuts, they drive too fast, they don't drive the speed limit, and it's really unsafe, I think. And you can see it, like I said, by the accidents that we've seen. I'm not opposed to having housing, affordable housing at all, but what I'm opposed to is not having the infrastructure to support the amount of units that you're trying to propose in the area. We already have a traffic congestion problem. By adding more units, you're adding to the problem. That's our biggest concern. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick question? The R2 adjacent, what's the lot width on that?
Those are 80 feet.
80 and this is 60?
60.
Now, whether they're built at
506,000.
yeah.
Anyone else wish to speak? Have any questions or comments in regards to the rezone? And third and final call for anyone that wishes to speak.
Joey, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for rezone 2403.
Greg, a second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we consider the rezone?
So Jeff, I'll make a comment. I know some of the concerns have been talked about infrastructure. One of the ways that we do achieve infrastructure being built is through development. Even though this is a rezone, it's not a development. But should the development come with later at this time for this rezone, there will be a sidewalk requirement made along Bush. There would be a road widening requirement made along Bush. That's just with any development, whether it's a R3 development or R2 development. There are requirements made for infrastructure improvement for the development of the
Is there a place where we can look that up to find out what those requirements are?
The development code.
Right.
Street.
All under Title IX.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, there's no sidewalk on Bush now. How did that get missed?
It was built likely before those requirements were in place.
Thank you, Tony. All right, so the things that we need to consider, the first one is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, why? And I feel as though with the max of 6, that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan. And would open it up to any comments or questions from the commissioners in regards to that.
I agree. I think 60 foot wide lots are typical these days.
And I'd like to also add about the node that doesn't show up on the land use plan, but there is some thought that was put in the planning to identify this area as a slightly increased density in this area for in proximity to the school. Because the schools don't allow buses to pick up, walk to school within.
This actually has these subdivisions do get picked up by the bus because it's 279 without the walks.
Oh,
They-
yes. Yeah.
So these ones do have access to buses and they're one of the only ones in 1 mile radius that does get buses.
That's good.
Thanks, Alan. So we would be in agreement that it is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? And I think with the single family designation, which is primarily what this is surrounded by, that in my opinion, it is compatible with the surrounding area and zones. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments? Would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and the surrounding areas? And again, I think with the single family designation in regards to the rezoning west, that it would be compatible with the other single family homes that are in the area. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to one landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? And I do not believe that it provides a benefit to just this one landowner. We would do the same consideration for each one of the properties in this area. Does anybody disagree with that or have any questions or comments? And if the public is opposed, why? Are the objections based upon factual information relating directly to this request or opinion-based? Does any factual information presented apply to the rezoning situation? And primary concern, traffic / infrastructure. Let me break them apart. Traffic, infrastructure, I would say is more along the sidewalks. And the other thing, Alan, thanks for pointing out the fact that they do have the ability to be picked up by a bus in the neighborhoods, which is good. The density is in line with what we had planned in this particular area. So when I think about the density, it's not a crazy amount where they're asking for any exceptions. And so that's primarily what was brought up from the public. again, we don't have any facts that say there's been, 12 additional accidents or anything like that. We don't have any additional information in regards to that. There is most likely an uptick in traffic, like there is in a lot of parts of town. Are there any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for rezone 2403, the Weeks property from A1 to R3 single family at 12660 Bush Road, which is 5.01 acres.
Joey, I'll make a motion to approve zone 2403.
This is Ben, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Samantha, if you would do a roll call for me, please.
Tony Davis. Ben Lewis.
Yes.
John Sussoms.
Yep, yes.
Jerry Harris. Fred Langford.
Yes.
Devin Murphy.
Yes.
Joey Engel. Brendan Swoboda.
Yes.
Jeff Safer.
I'm a yes as well. Thank you. Good luck. All right, next on the agenda this evening is track split 2404 Crystal Cove Phase 1 replat. It's on Keller Road. It's zoned RTH MF12. The applicant here to give us an overview. Diane, I think it's all,
Oh, Tim, let me raise his hand. Hang on 1 second. He is online. If I can get my mouse to cooperate.
Here too.
And that's here also, so.
If you need me.
Okay, I will
I think so.
allow Tim to talk. Okay, Tim.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, thank you for allowing me to join you by Zoom. I had 2 planning commission meetings starting at 6 o'clock tonight on different ends of the state. So I appreciate you guys letting me join by Zoom. Basically, this is just a replat to add some easements for the gas company and also to provide ingress and egress for the back of the middle parts of the building, the middle lots on each building. And that's it in a nutshell. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
all right, thanks, Tim. Diane?
Yeah, and for some clarification on this one, Maureen, I think that this should be considered an amended plat and not a replat. So things went crazy this afternoon, so that wasn't updated. As Tim stated, they are just adding utility easements to the rear of the lots to account for gas line installation because the developer would like to include gas to the homes, and given the size of the lots and how close they are together, there wasn't room for the gas, so they've come back to amend this already approved final plat to add those. And also at the rear of the lots, it's not only is it a utility easement, it's also an access easement, because the developer did make a good point for people that live, say in the middle of the 5-unit structure. They're gonna be responsible for mowing their yards because they are, single family attached homes. So how would you get back there to mow your yard? You don't really want to keep your lawnmower, in the middle of your living room. So that's also gonna be an access easement so people can get back there to get in and maintain their yards and things like that. So, and it is a 15-foot utility easement. That is what Centerton Utilities, he doesn't want anything less than 15 feet, and the gas company has approved this.
Wasn't it shown on the final plat that we?
Yes, and that's why I was confused the other day when I started the meeting.
Right.
That was phase 2. So
Okay.
this is a 3-phase subdivision. Phase 1 was already final platted when we realized this issue that there was not having room. That's why my brain was going in circles.
And I would like to point out that we did catch this with phase 2, so you will not be seeing a replat on phase 2.
What does the gas want to go in the back? They go in the front everywhere else.
There's not Oh, go ahead.
It's the minimum spacing you have to be from openings in the front and then distance from your water meter and everything else in the electric meter. So with that, you can't put it within, I think it's 36 inches of windows, doors, other openings. So you can't really get it in the back, in the front. So it's needing to come in through the back.
There's just no room with the setbacks and all of the utilities also having to be up front.
Okay. Just curious.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? If not, then I would entertain a motion for track split 2404 Crystal Cove Phase 1 amended plat, correct? Not replat.
Yes, it will not be actually a track split. We'll.
Right.
Changing them, but for this purpose, yes, that's the
All right.
project until we change it.
Whatever y'all wanna.
This is Joey. I'm going to approve the project formerly known as TS 2404 Crystal Cove amended plat.
Unilaterally.
This is Craig, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, thanks. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, next on the agenda is Development 2310 Splash Car Wash, revised preliminary plans at 250 East Centerton Boulevard.
Tanner Freeman with Colliers Development, formally approved, 11/15. We're simply making some revisions on the project, basically reducing the overall footprint, adding green space, reducing vacuums, everything else. For the most part, it's the same. Any other technical things that we want to talk about, we have Phil Blewett involved.
Eric, you want to give us a staff overview?
Yeah, so originally the preliminary plans, I'm trying to say today. Were approved back in November of 2022, and they received an extension. For 1 year after November of 2023, so there's still an approval state, but they submitted a revised site layout. The development plans for the automated. So the revised site plans reduces the impact of impervious development. And then the developer has decreased the size of the car wash tunnel, number of parking spaces and vacuum stalls. Access to Fair Street has been moved to the north. And landscaping has been updated, a few more trees and green spaces to the west along Fair Street. R3 MF residence is located to the north of the property. C2 Mall, Strip Mall is located east, and a C2 Highway Commercial Bank located west across Fair Street. There was a conditional use permit, which was approved back by the Planning Commission back in October of 2022 for the use of a car wash. Remaining comments primarily relate to updating contact information, site plan corrections, just minor stuff. Then comments were made by utilities regarding the sewer connection, which has since been addressed. So big changes to the layout include, as stated, reduction in number of parking spots and vacuum bays, size of the building. The pay gate went from 3 lanes to 2. And then the entrance from Fair Street was moved further north, so it no longer aligns with the access way to the commercial lot to the west of Fair Street. And then the pond was shifted a few feet east, so it does not encroach into the utility easement along Fair Street. Proposed development is being constructed off Fair Street, an existing local street, and then Centerton Boulevard, which is a major arterial. So there will be 2 points of access. And then any construction in Highway 102 will require approval from RDOT. So there were comments provided by building and planning to recommend a right turn only onto 102 due to the heavy traffic congestion in the area. The applicant wishes to keep the left turn lane, so that will be a point of discussion for our item on the agenda. And then we do ask for the applicant to show the access off the commercial property to the west to determine how the driveways align. Adjacent street agreement has not yet been approved. Current draft agreement calls for the following. Well, it has since been reviewed by the departments and have we all recommend approval of the adjacent street agreement as such, which includes a new sidewalk parallel to Fair Street, new curb and gutter on the east side of Fair Street, to be built in accordance with our code. Construct a new 12-inch and 18-inch storm drain with 2 new inlets going along the east side of Fair Street. A new 10-foot concrete apron on the new access drive to the east side of Fair Street. And shall repair or replace any damages existing along Fair Street during construction. Any drainage will be taken to the detention pond on the southeast or the southwest part of the site. The development will utilize a curb and gutter system to convey the stormwater to its respective catch basins, which will discharge into the detention pond. There will be a total of 21 trees and then 217 shrubs placed throughout the property, mainly along the back of curb and the curb islands. We did request street trees beyond Fair Street, but due to the constraints presented by utilities and the amount of space provided by the right of way that doesn't allow for street trees to be placed. So they made up the difference by placing trees all along the site.
They were just redistributed throughout.
Yeah, they're kind of still there if,
That's the.
yeah, they're just not exactly street trees per se.
Okay, they will need a new floodplain development permit, which is, they got it in the past approval, which has now been expired. The car wash tunnel will be outside of the 100-year floodplain. A 6-foot tall privacy fence is proposed along the north side of the property to provide screening for the adjacent residential property to the north. There was some changes in the lighting plan and will require a photometric plan. There are a total of 3 employee parking spots, including 1 handicap spot and a vacuum bay designated as an overflow employee parking spot. The applicant states that at the most 2 employees will be working on the site. And they will have access to a break room, which is about 300 square feet. Which also meets our parking requirements of 1 space per 200 square feet of commercial use, which can be interpreted as such as office space. And that's what we call the break rooms. And then there was a comment on the main line or the connection to the main line. The angle was too sharp to accommodate the flow of sewage, so the connection has been revised without such a sharp angle. So what's left to be determined is to determine if the left turn lane is allowed on 102. We need PC approval of the revised development site plan, the adjacent street agreement, landscape plan, and lighting plan. They need to reapply for the floodplain development permit, address any outstanding minor staff comments.
Quick question on the parking, 2 people at one time. So, and unless I'm reading it wrong, I only see 1, you have 1 normal stall, but then you also have an ADA stall. Where's that second person gonna park?
They usually just park in a vacuum on the end.
Yeah, pretty typical, and all the other ones we've opened and several. Rarely are they ever all full, you know, if they do, they'll always send them park off site somewhere, if that becomes an issue. It hasn't yet anywhere, they've already opened, so.
Do you have other properties that you built where the exit of the tunnel and the entrance onto the property are across from each other? Isn't that, am I reading that right? Right? They make a right, they go under the property, they go through the two stalls, they come through the tunnel, they exit the tunnel right in front of the entrance to the property?
You exit the tunnel and take a right, go to the vacuums.
To go to the vacuums.
Do you have other properties where the exit of the tunnel is in front of the entrance to the property?
Immediately aligned, I believe
Set, right?
slightly at Greenbrier, which that one's slightly offset as well. I mean, Greenbrier has that, I'm not really sure.
Seems like that would be a potential congestion point, especially also asking for a left-hand turn lane.
We're kind of limited because we're going where an existing driveway is on highway, and we're shifting it just slightly. Because we have a certain distance, we have to stay from the side street, and we're against the adjacent property, so we're forced into that situation. I get your point.
And why are you fighting hard to keep the left turn lane there versus exit out that and come down the street? What's the purpose?
Just easier exit, just egress, I mean, options for.
More options.
It's optionality.
And how close is this entrance to the Verizon?
It's an existing drive.
It's what?
It's an existing access point already. They're not adding anything. It's already there.
That width is there, no, it's there. Right.
Yeah, that's an existing entrance right off the highway now. They're not adding it there.
And it's not being widened for this situation.
Correct.
I don't know.
And we've conversed with Ben Kerwood with the highway department. We've got to get we want to make sure we have the final formal plans before we did the final submittal. The permit from RDOT, so. But it's been vetted by them. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Would it be possible to share the other access that is already existing just right to the east of your property so that just because there's an existing driveway, we've got driveways all along 102. And
Unfortunately, we can't use that. You know, you've driven one of the drive that situation.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane getting here.
Is there access easement on that?
there
To the
is, yeah.
east?
On the east,
An
yeah.
access easement to the front.
That was actually part of the city's alley. that they used.
Is that a full access or is it right in, right out?
No,
it's both
ways.
It's both ways.
I mean, it could be widened on their side.
Yeah, sure. I think I totally agree with Lorraine. If you're gonna pursue the left in, I think the only way, just personally my belief, the only way I'd like to see that happen is if you share that drive to the east. If not, I'm gonna be a pretty strong proponent of a right in, right out, with full access on there.
The aerial.
Yeah.
No, yeah, do you know how that lines up on Fair Street?
I don't.
It's all.
Yeah, when you get to it, I have it up for you.
Oh, you got it right there.
Oh, those.
Damn. Let's have a little.
You're a 6. You're a 0.
On the road, right?
Yeah. Or to the back.
We're gonna do it.
Come straight off. The Verizon is,
So it looks like the Verizon. It's pretty narrow. It might take an extra lane on your side to get it full width. You have it pulled up right there?
Yeah, gotta hit new share and we're good to go.
That's not a bad idea.
No, and it was set up that way intentionally.
I like that.
So are you saying if we try to get the left-hand turn lane out, that's what you're gonna try to say we have to do? If we concede to knock the left-hand turn lane out, then we can keep it where it's at? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you logistically, at this point, this thing's plug's about to get pulled on. I'm just being honest. We've already
Well, and you know,
With all due respect, and I understand your concerns and it's crazy, but I mean, and I'm speaking, I'm not the owner.
Are there any other points of discussion on that are?
The left end or the left?
Is that the primary?
Not the primary thing that we want to discuss, because we could say that till last.
I mean, I think it's pretty important.
yeah,
I'm not, and I'm not, no, I'm not minimizing, I'm just saying
I think there's a couple of.
sitting on this.
Yeah.
You want to come back to that?
Okay, when we look at the aerials, I just want to go real quick. There's a storm drain box in there, so I'm not sure if they can
There's
get.
also a light pole right there.
Pedestals of some kind.
Yeah.
There's no.
But-
I'm sorry.
What about going to the north? Yeah, it's a little funky too.
That's Sid's.
Well, and with all due respect, unless there's something already in place between two properties, we're talking about getting involved with.
That's what I just asked. She said there is a.
It's the city's property.
On both sides.
So you own
That strip.
that strip, so y'all can allow us just to put it wherever.
I'd like to see the parcel ends here, what you're talking.
Otherwise.
I'm gonna turn off the aerial for them.
Okay, so are you, and you're saying that without the left turn lane, that it kills the deal with your developer?
I think he's saying it's close to.
Saying that, no, ma'am, I'm trying to clarify, if we pursue getting that, is that gonna say the city's gonna say, no, you need to go, you're gonna have to do something different, because I think time and logistics and all that's just gonna,
That section.
but it's in a large.
Well, the question would be, is there an access easement in place on the adjacent property? Or is that
Well, it connects to that highway right away.
interesting? That right away comes back quite a bit.
Cities, but now it looks like the highway. They're there.
And I understand your concerns on the timing and everything, but frankly, this is something we talked about last time too, right?
No, we've never, this
Have
has
we
never
not?
come up till this week or last week. No, and I'm not trying to, again, disrespect.
Fine, man.
I'm just doing what I'm doing.
You're doing your job.
Just trying, I mean, we're. And it is a congested street, there's no question about it, which is a good problem to have, I guess.
Did you drive on Fair lineup? I think that was another question.
There is an alley.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a note there, landscape plan. I mean, was there a significant change in the landscape plan? I'm not.
We didn't get rid of any land, even though we reduced the footprint of the building and took a block of paving. We actually, I think, added 2 trees from what we had gotten approved prior a year ago.
I'm just trying to cross off like.
Sure. And just as another point of, hope there's some appreciation for, we did not even reduce the size of the detention pond, even though the impervious area went down significantly. We left the pond the same size to make certain there wasn't gonna be issues. So it was honestly an economic decision with the developer, because we built several of these and things have gotten so expensive that it's at a point now they had to.
Market conditions.
Yeah.
And then coming back to project economics and timeline
Yeah.
and where we are today. It's moving forward. So that's why we're
Yeah.
here doing the revisions.
Well, frankly, we always see them get bigger, right? Nobody ever goes smaller.
Vacuums now. I mean,
That's
no one does that.
There was mention of the drive on Fair Street across from you lining up. It looks like we're gonna be misaligned just a little bit, but I don't know how far.
The only way to align would be where the pond's going
I
now.
don't think you can.
I don't know that there's that much traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, most of it's turning into the bank.
I'm not a huge deal breaker in my book.
I think it's better further away from 102
Mhm.
and
This,
I was talking about the northern drive, but I totally agree with you.
I don't think enough,
this was,
space for them to
On
line
the
up.
west side, northwest.
It's,
Yeah.
it'll be a little offset just because there's 2 to the bank, 1 across from multifamily.
Mhm.
And then there's 1 a little bit down, that's right on the property line.
Yeah.
Diane did pull up the old site plan that was approved and it looks like it does have the left out.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
We missed that one.
We totally missed that one.
So that's been approved.
It has been.
Certainly. Then we don't need to talk.
Yeah, I
It's already
agree.
been approved.
I agree.
Keep it open for discussion, but
I mean, I don't think we can not approve it now. We all know what that means. Thank you, Timmy.
Brandon, what you commented on about the tunnel exit being directly across from that entrance there, that was the same as previously also.
Coming in is offset. It's
I
not
would
direct.
still strongly discourage a left-hand turn
Yeah,
there. They could easily go to Fair Street.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just got three.
I don't remember.
ways,
I
so
don't remember this.
How long ago was this?
I don't know that it actually showed up very well on the site plan. I don't think it should.
It wasn't in your
Right.
guys'
That was-
report striped like that.
It was shown in, I mean, we got it approved in November of 22, I believe, and we came back in November last year to get a year extension was granted.
It was November.
You caught us after Thanksgiving or something.
Turkey was.
When did I start?
PC report didn't have this page with the striping in it. Your guys' PC report didn't, so I don't know that it was ever brought
But
up.
it's a wide drive. I mean, regardless, we missed it. We previously approved it. I agree with Brandon.
I don't see how we can go
I
back.
don't, yeah. And it's still currently approved, right?
So.
So
Wait a second, I'm confused. So if that was approved and everything was, what are we revising?
They shrank the.
we're just reducing the footprint of the whole development.
You guys have to reapprove it because the site plan changed substantially.
So we technically
Yeah.
have to reapprove
This is a re.
tan turn.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I needed clarification.
You have to reapprove or approve the revised site plan.
This is approving the revised site plan
And just to refresh, everyone's mind, this is what it was
before.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm just like. Let me refresh.
The new one.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay.
And that's
Slow, she was letting them.
Stuff going on.
Oh.
Haven't seen it in a few years.
Okay. And once it pops back up. there.
It's pretty.
Magic.
Well, and the left turn is probably top of mind because we just discouraged it on the tire shop and
Yeah.
we were able to use some agreements. So anyway. Okay,
Well, and
That one wasn't discouraging left turn, it was adding a new driveway entrance off 102
Yeah.
was the issue there.
and since November 22, I mean, it's worse. Like, I know that doesn't seem long ago.
Oh, no, well, you are.
Gosh,
What?
it's even worse now.
I believe
It
you.
wasn't November 22.
all right. So I'm gonna keep us on track. So to answer everybody's question, the revised site layout that we are going to consider is the reduction of the vacuum bays from 14 to 10 and parking spots from 5 to 2. Size of the car wash tunnel. 3 lanes to 2 lanes at the pay gate. The entrance from Fair Street moved further north and shifted the pond a few feet east so it does not encroach into the proposed 15-foot utility easement along Fair Street. That's what's being requested for the new layout.
Is there any, just total question, because I don't feel like I've looked at it good last time. Is there a enclosure around your dumpster?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually.
We only have a few a few sheets in our set here.
Sorry, yeah, and I think that's probably shown the architectural.
Yeah.
Civil, but. Yes, sir, it is.
Are there any additional questions or comments on the revised layout
We're approving the street agreement too, is that correct?
and the adjacent street agreement? Yes.
It was a super minor change from last time. Instead of stating that the improvements would happen on the east side, it said west.
Oh. Yeah, okay. West side of the site, east side of Fair Street.
It was, yeah, I remember right.
That was the change.
So I just want to say, great job.
Yeah.
Like, really, good job. I mean, I love everything. I hate the left hand. Right.
Don't take it personally.
I just, yeah, don't take it personally because I love everything. I'm so excited, that we're getting this. I just am not a big fan of that at all. And I mean, I don't want that to kill a deal, but I mean, how married is the owner to a left-hand turn? I mean, can we just think about, I'm just thinking more about our residents and our,
But in all honesty, you got left-hand turns down with the bank and
That is true.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere though, Jerry.
But I think that's my point. I can't fix what everybody did in the
Yeah.
past, but why should we get
More
I
policy.
can fight for it now? So
I think what Brandon's saying is if you guys want some extreme brownie points, there's some to be had here.
I mean, just goodwill, I think more than anything. It's just like, I mean, I'm married as the owner to a left-hand turn versus just giving it up and saying,
I mean, you represent really,
I
I
mean,
do, but you're with.
Being that
group,
it's
so I'm not-
already approved, like we already stated.
Yeah, Tanner.
I think that at this point in time, we'll keep it as is. I think that there could be, I mean, after the fact, if there's something that we need to change, that we could look at it then.
Y'all should come out there about 4 o'clock on this day.
Yeah.
so I mean.
Exactly how long it takes you to
Turn. I
I
respect.
don't think it's us. I think it's gonna affect you guys more than you think, so. Do what you gotta do, but.
You talking about people backing up, trying to hang
Yeah, I think
out of there.
left back up, there's gonna be
I
4
would-
cars trying to go.
Highly warn your owner. That's the stance you're gonna take. I would highly warn him. But I think you're gonna have major issues here. You're gonna have potential wrecks, you're gonna have lawsuits, you're gonna have issues. People coming out of that tunnel, people coming into the property, people trying to turn left and then backing up again.
People get,
I just think you're gonna have major issues.
they get confused there because the right lane's a right lane only, and then all of a sudden they figure out they gotta turn left or get in left.
True,
It's just,
true.
it is unfortunately an absolute nightmare, and so all we can do is speak our piece, and since it hasn't been approved once,
Yeah, absolutely. And the client is very attuned to quality operation. If there's gonna be an issue, they will fix it very fast. I can guarantee that.
I think we know there will likely be an issue, but
Likely what now?
be an issue.
Yeah.
all right. With that being said, I would entertain a motion for the updated revised preliminary plans for.
Wait, I'm sorry. Before you do that, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a legal question. Okay? So this was approved before.
Well, and see, my perspective of, I think I understand what your question is, this is a revised plan. I don't think you have to look back at what what was approved before, they can do that. So long as that, approval still matches, they're submitting something new. That's my take.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify that point, because I am technically voting on a left-hand turn lane.
You don't have to agree.
It's a revised plan. I'm just clarifying legally, correct?
That's my position.
So be clear, this is something that was approved before and it's not a point of.
Well, when you change the site plan, came back for reapproval, now it's a whole new vote.
Okay.
Right.
That,
For clarifying.
yeah, that was not clear to me.
And we did double back a couple of weeks ago when it came up that we had to go back through planning commission. Well, we'll just go back and do what was approved. And we were told you can't do that. Because there's some things that were found that weren't found before, which. That really was a tough one to explain to the owner. I mean, not him, nothing personal. From cutting the checks, but I mean, that was like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So. They would have gone ahead and built, that's where they were at. They would have gone ahead and built what you saw before, just to get it done. And forget the cost savings. They would change materials on the building, which they were gonna do anyway, which I think they've already
I'm
turned.
confused because that's not what you said earlier. You said they intentionally were doing this because the costs were so high.
They were, but they had made the decision that if it's to save time, because they've been paying on this land for a long time, so they're ready to get started. That was the thing. And they said, well,
I respect.
they just said, hey, if it's, no, I understand that. I'm just saying, I'm just saying the iterations that have occurred in the last little bit, so. And we don't want to leave, we want to leave here tonight approved. I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah, so that clarification at the very last minute there was very key.
Changes the.
Okay, it does. And we want to get this project moving forward and approved tonight. So if that left-hand turn lane is gonna keep us from getting approved tonight, we're gonna take out the left-hand turn lane.
Okay,
I'm great with that.
so, and here's what I think we can do, since time is of the essence, right? I would be willing to approve it contingent on that revision and let staff handle checking the plans, make sure it's good, and as soon as that comes in, you're ready to roll.
Yeah, because we still had a few other items, like, I
Right.
didn't want to redo the site lighting photometrics, so we knew this is what it was gonna be. But that's quick, we'll have that, and then we can have this within a few days, so. You agree?
Yep, absolutely.
And hopefully the floodplain permit, is that pretty quick? I mean, is that something that's gonna hold us up very long?
Just expired.
Building being out
Asking for your attention.
should be easier, right?
Should be about the same as what,
Okay,
because the building's completely out of the floodplain.
yes, ma'am. Okay.
I
That's
asked that on your.
too, why we can't.
Very difficult to see those lines.
Buildings out of floodplain.
Anyone looking at this that didn't know where it was,
That's exactly.
could not.
That's not our.
We're clear up in the northern.
The contours, okay,
Yeah, and so those lines are just
okay,
really hard to see.
sure, we'll make them more evident, Lorraine, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I like what Joey said. Let's approve content. I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no further questions, then I would entertain a motion.
Your motion can be stated as such.
I'll handle it.
Here's you first.
Excuse
You ready, Jeff?
I've been ready.
All right. Brandon, any last words?
No, sir, I'm
Okay.
done.
Thought I'd check before.
Question, I talked to our lawyer. I'm good.
I'll make a motion to approve development 2310 Splash Car Wash with the revisions we've seen tonight. Along with the outstanding staff comments, including reducing the drive to a right in, right out on 102. As well as a contingent approval on the street agreement. And I think, was that the only items?
Floodplain.
And a new floodplain development permit.
Second.
This is development 2207.
I don't know where
You read what's on the, correctly on the documentation for the meeting. It's 2207.
Yeah, I'll make that same motion for that one too.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you, guys. Good
Well,
luck.
thank y'all very much, seriously.
All right,
See y'all.
anything else from staff? All right, next there is a council meeting on 4/9.
So we have a question.
Sorry.
Question about townhomes or R3MF.
I do have a question on townhomes. Why do they have to do a PUD to have one owner lot?
It's very specific. The R3MF is designated for one building per lot, but they can be up to 4 units attached on the one lot.
So that's. To me, multifamily would be individual units, a fourplex with lot lines down each shared wall, right?
It's fourplex.
On one lot.
on one lot.
Yeah, 4.1.
Is there a benefit to doing that? That seems like a hassle. Cause personally, I see every day a lot of those projects coming through with multiple units on one lot. Where they know they want to keep it long term. They might do HPR or something for just the units, but they're gonna maintain ownership of the whole deal.
Well, our setbacks are measured or derived from the lot lines and the street and so forth. So that's why when we look at this and then it says a PUD, I mean, that's why those PUD requirements are there so that we can look at what the density is, what the surrounding.
But wouldn't it be
Setbacks
as
are.
simple to say that you have to follow the same setback requirements or? You know, spacing between building requirements, because that's what you're referencing.
What then, what about the zero lot line? I mean, you take it away that you're not allowing any zero lot lines?
It is zero lot line.
That's what,
You can,
that's what's confusing me.
So
Let's
it's
say it again.
a fourplex on one lot.
Okay. So the
can still-
fourplex are not individual owners of that fourplex.
One person owns all four.
They would rent them.
Right.
I think it's,
Another owner on B, it's all one owner.
Yes.
I just think the ownership part's kind of a weird deal to dictate a PUD. And I don't know how many of these you're seeing, but we see them a lot.
I'm just having a conversation. It's the third one in the last few years.
Do what?
At least the third or fourth one in the last like year and a half. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing like a couple of months.
Well, the other cities have the PUD as a zoning district.
It's not a PUD, it's straight multifamily zoning.
He wants to change the R3 MF to, you can have more than one fourplex per lot without having to do
Yeah.
a PUD.
There would have to be,
I'm offering a recommendation because
yeah, additional requirements.
I think the only thing you have to protect at that point is the setbacks between the buildings and then from the road. But the intent would be to hold the normal requirements. What's the R4 MF?
Apartments.
Is it just apartments or then you can do that under R4? Yes, you could. But then at that point, you can go way denser, right?
Then you can get up to 18 units per acre.
What's R3 MF? 12?
8.
Okay, now it's a big thing that R4 is harder to rezone to.
Yes. You have a middle.
I just thought it was odd that the ownership dictates the PUD.
I mean, they
Still
can
has-
still own all of the lots if they wanted to plat it out as lots, and we do have some of
I
those.
mean, that's true. That does change.
Still.
It changes the requirements on the building type though, I believe, right? No?
Whenever we went through, it changed and required them all to be sprinkled. This is kind of another reason why we did it. It simplifies all.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't matter whether a 0 lot line or you have the 10 feet in between the buildings, they're already sprinkled, so it's already allowed by code.
Oh, so to your point, you don't care.
I do, but in this.
It makes no difference from a fire emergency standpoint. Who owns it, where the lot lines are, because across the board, you have the one regulation of they're gonna be sprinkled.
I mean,
Are you doing Ds, 13Ds?
yes. It overly simplifies everything because before, if it was one owner, multiple units, it was, you had to have this rated assembly. If it was 0 lot line and you had 2 owners, it was this rated assembly that you had to go to, and it was this way. It just simplifies it. Everything stays the same, no matter.
Thank you. That's all I have.
There's a council meeting on the 9th. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 16th. If you can't be here, please let us know. And I'll see you before the tech review. Anything else? We're gonna motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? Yes.